Hey guys, so before I even start this video out, because I have already been threatened of being sued because of this whole fiasco, I'm gonna go ahead and say, hey, this is my opinion and I'm just here to distribute the evidence that I have figured out throughout this whole thing. And if you decide that this is factual, then so be it, but I am just displaying this as opinion, and it is just as basically a review of this brand and this company. So if you see me picking up this notepad or glancing at it, it's because I actually wrote down every single incident that has happened regarding this whole situation, and I want to make sure that I am as clear and concise as possible because I already filmed this video 2 other times and more stuff has happened since the other filmings, and those videos were already 40 minutes long, so I need to make this as quick as possible. First and foremost, hi, my name's Laura, and most of my videos are not this negative, but sometimes you just gotta say what you gotta say and you gotta get it off your mind. So here we go. We're gonna go ahead and get into it. Let's talk about Green Valley Pride. It's a raw company, if you want to call it that. So let's get into it. Let's get into the nasty. So let's just start with the fact that I have 4 dogs, a 13-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 2-year-old, and one that literally just turned a year this month. I have been ordering Green Valley Pride through the co-op for about a year now, since July. My first order was either July or August of 2018, and it is currently June 10th at 4:52. So it has been about 11 months, and this is basically what has happened in those 11 months. My first order was either July or August of 2018, and I wanted rabbit, and I ordered rabbit, and they said I wanted whole rabbit, specifically whole rabbit, and they said, oh, we're out of whole rabbit this month. I was like, okay, cool. So I ordered it the next month. They were out of whole rabbit that month. I ordered it the following month, so 3 months in a row, and they were out of it. They couldn't give it to me, but I did order ground rabbit, and I did get that. At the beginning of me ordering, they had quail, rabbit, goat, pork, beef, but it was only offered in chunks, turkey, and chicken. So they had 7 proteins starting out. I used to always order goat, quail, and rabbit. I would feed those 3. My dogs have been on PMR before, which is premodel raw, and if you don't know, Tony, which is the owner of Green Valley Pride, he claims that his grinds are 80-10-10. He actually tells you that they are 80-10-10 and that they are PMR raw. So, about October, I started noticing that my 13-year-old collie mixes, which is actually, I'll insert a picture of her here, Dixie, her feet were bright red and she clearly had a yeast infection. Now, Dixie doesn't have issues with pretty much anything, but I do know that she has issues with chicken. And keep in mind that we have lived in Florida in the same vicinity for her entire life. Like, she was born and raised in Bradenton. I took her over when she was 4 in Palmetto, and then now I'm in Mayaca. So it's not like we're moving generally like this whole big area, so it couldn't have been environmental allergies. I even took her to the vet in November, I'm pretty sure. I have those. If anybody actually wants to see the vet records, I can get the vet records. But I took her to the vet, and the vet point blank said it's a yeast infection from some type of allergy. Probably a food allergy, because we hadn't moved enough and we hadn't gone anywhere for it to be an environmental allergy. So she told me to wash her feet and keep it as clean as possible, and I did. By December, my 17-year-old cat, Jasmine, she had started to decline. And I really quickly noticed that, like, her poop was really, really white, and so I took her to the vet, and keep in mind, she was eating Tony's Raw, and she had been eating Tony's Raw, and it's supposed to be, you know, a specific feline grind that has more organ meat in it for cats, okay? So I take her in and they say that she needs more liver. So as of late, I actually took her off of Tony's Raw and put her on one that has like just plain raw, like from a different company, which I'm not gonna say the company's name because I'm not trying to get people thinking that I'm making this video to promote another company, because that's not it at all. I'm trying to save people's dogs and cats for that matter. But I put her on a different raw brand, and I've actually tried like 6 different brands with her, and she has not had messed up poop since she's been off of his raw. Moving on to January, she was like 8 months old at the time. She had like lost a lot of weight. Like she had leaned down, yes, because I know puppies lean down at that age group, but she had like lost a lot of weight. April was when I started to notice that my 2-year-old and my 9-year-old had both lost a significant amount of weight, and my 13-year-old had lost a lot of weight too. So I started paying a lot more attention to them, specifically their poop and their like activity level and stuff like this. And I noticed that their poop was white and dusty, as in like if you feed raw, you know that poultry shows a different color than say lamb or llama or goat or any type of red meat. Poultry usually is like a clay color, and red meat is a more traditional poop color. So I noticed that they had like really like powdery and clay like poop, and I was like, that's weird, like whatever. It is also important to note that up until about February. Up until about February, I was giving them Dr. Harvey's Raw Vibrance, Nupro, goat's milk, bone broth, spirulina, and fish oil. And green lip mussels. So they were getting 7 supplements up until February. And April was when I started noticing that their poop was really gross, and that all 4 of them had lost a significant amount of weight. So sometime in April, I did contact, again, I'm changing everybody's names so that there's no way you can find them, because I don't want them to be involved in this. I already spoke to them and they know that I'm telling this story, but I told them that I didn't want to include their names because it's honestly not worth it. So I spoke with Sarah, and she is one of my close friends that I met through raw feeding. And Sarah said, I told her, I was like, this is really weird. I told her about what's going on with my dogs, and she said that her dog, ironically, is allergic to chicken really, really bad, and he can't eat Tony's rabbit or his lamb or his llama or his goat. Like, he couldn't eat any of it because he was breaking out so bad from it. And so I said, that's so weird, because she feeds rabbit and lamb from another company. So how is it that she's able to feed rabbit and lamb from one company and not the other? Now, I know some of you are going to say, oh, well, you know, it depends on what the animal's being fed, etc., etc., etc. But literally, she has tried rabbit and lamb from every other place, and he did fine, except for when he tried to eat any of Tony's meat. So, moving on. Let's call her Carla. So I called Carla, and Carla, her dog was breaking out. She actually sent me pictures of her dog on Tony's food, and then she sent me pictures of her dog recovered, so you can see the differences, Tony and recovered. And she basically said her dog was having white poop too, and she had no idea why. And I was like, wow, that's so weird. Like, the calcium has to be high in this. There's no way it's 80-10-10. So then I decided to like try and find retail locations that sold Tony's Raw to see if they had any insight that like I was missing out on. So I found a store that is kind of local, and I called them and I spoke to the owner, and let's call that owner Elizabeth. And Elizabeth and I spoke on the phone for about an hour, and she said honestly that the one reason that she stopped carrying it, because she doesn't carry it anymore, was because she had her suspicions of exactly what I was explaining, and when she brought it up to him, he was extremely rude to her, and she felt like that was bad business, so she stopped carrying it. That was basically the gist of our hour conversation. So she was super nice. So then I was going through like our co-op group, and our co-op group has like a Facebook page where you can post in it and ask questions and stuff. And a guy that was in our co-op that I don't personally know, but I am in a co-op with him, let's call him Travis, he posted that his Doberman puppy had stopped eating the food and wouldn't eat it, and he couldn't figure out why. And so after I had all of this like building up in my head, I decided that I would go home and I would open up mutton, llama, and goat, and I would open them up and put them side by side. Here are the pictures from that. And then to prove that it wasn't red meat, I would cook it, and when I cooked it, it turned dark like thigh meat from a chicken bone. There's also a small bone in it that looks like a kneecap from some type of poultry animal. So we'll get into all of that. But basically you can tell the difference between red meat and white meat, especially when you cook it. So I was like, oh, that's a great way to tell. I don't have the money to send it off. So that's what I did. After I cooked it, I very, very clearly knew that it was not what it was supposed to be. So I was sending the pictures to Sarah and Carla, and I felt super bad for Travis. So I reached out to Travis and I said, hey, I know you said your dog wasn't eating it. Like, this is what I found out. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know, but like, here's the pictures, and this is what Elizabeth said, and this is what Carla said, and this is what Sarah said. Like, we're all having similar issues, and wouldn't you know it, his dog's poop was white and powdery. So I told him like, hey, we can get meat from Elizabeth and I'm gonna stop feeding it, whatever. He goes, awesome, I'm gonna go ahead and cancel my order. And I said, yeah, I already canceled mine as well because we were coming up on an order. So the way that the co-op group works is that you have to contact like the owner, or the head of the co-op. And so let's call the owner of, or like the head of the co-op group, Gertrude. So everybody goes through Gertrude and says like, hey, I want to cancel my order. So Travis and I cancel our order, and she reaches out to me and says, so Gertrude messages me and says, is there a reason why you canceled your order? Because you're the second or third person to cancel your order this month, and I just want to make sure that there's nothing going on. So I ask her if I can call her because I didn't really want to text all of this over Messenger, and it's just way too much. So I tell her everything that I found and all of the like information leading up to this, and she basically says, I have noticed that my dogs, like, there's certain things that I've noticed that kind of correlate with what you're saying. She didn't really tell me much about it. I think she was trying to play both sides, honestly, and I get where she's coming from. She's really good friends with the owner of this company, but like, you can't just keep backtracking and acting like this is okay if like dogs are at risk. Because for those of you who don't raw feed, like if you're watching this video just for shits and giggles, you cannot have an unbalanced raw diet. Like, feeding an unbalanced raw diet is 100% worse than feeding like the worst kibble on the market. Like, if you're feeding the worst kibble on the market, yeah, there's preservatives, yeah, there's a ton of nasty stuff in it, but at least their base trace minerals are being met. If you're feeding an unbalanced raw diet, you can seriously screw up your dog's whole body. So with all of that being said, we had this conversation and she was like, well, I really think that you should reach out to Tony. And I said, you know, I don't really have anything to say to him. I can ask him. He's going to deny it. That's where the conversation ends. Like, he was rude to this other person. He was rude to Elizabeth. Why should I? Like, I don't really want to get into it with him. She said, okay, well, do you mind if I say something about it? I said, you know what? I honestly don't care. Like, you do whatever you got to do. Just don't bring me into it because I don't want to be into it. So she obviously talks to Tony. I am 100% sure she didn't keep my name private, and that's fine, whatever. But she talks to Tony and she writes this long post in our co-op group, and it's like, I've been feeding my dogs for 3 years this food and I've never had a problem with it. Whatever. Then she messages Travis. So Gertrude messages Travis and blames all of the health problems that he had told her, like why he was not gonna feed Tony's food anymore. She says that his dog has chronic health problems and that the food is not the problem, and then blocks him and kicks him out of the group. What? So I leave it alone. I don't really talk about it to anybody else. Like, it's not worth my time. I obviously tell my mom and whatever. and her dog was having issues. One of her dogs that has megaesophagus lost a ton of weight. He's the same age as my 2-year-old German Shepherd, so he's like 2. And then her 9-year-old Shepherd had like scabs, and we call them itchies, but it's literally like scabs from allergies where like all the skin pops off and like clumps of hair. It's really gross, but he had those. And since changing off of Tony's Raw, all of our dogs and cats and animals have recovered, thankfully. But this is kind of like a PSA for people who don't know that this could be an issue. So while I was cooking the food, I actually started like going through to see if I could see any organ meat at all, and literally all I saw was, I'm not even joking, like bone and meat, and it looks like ground up chicken quarters. Like, I don't know if that's what it is, but that's what it looks like. Looks like ground up chicken quarters. So after I leave it alone for a while, I see all of these posts from Tony, and it's like, here's my inspection notice, and his inspection was May of 2017, and that's the last inspection that he has had through Georgia. And ironically enough, I spoke to Sarah, and Sarah called, and Sarah said, and I will obviously post a screenshot of this. So I just called the Animal Georgia Disease and Traceability about his premises registration from 2017. They said as long as he is still at the address, the registration is still good, and he only has to update it if he moves. It has nothing to do with the meat, so do you have any idea if he is legally supposed to have some sort of inspections? So his inspection that his license that he was posting everywhere literally has nothing to do with his business. It has to do with the fact that he's a live working farm. So he's sitting here saying, oh, I'm getting inspected every month, and even Gertrude was saying that he was getting inspected every month, and that's just interesting. So he starts posting videos of his rabbit. He didn't ever post a video. He posted a picture of like a handful of rabbits, like maybe 10 or 20 rabbits, and maybe like 50 quail, and then he posted like maybe 20 goats, and then he had a video of his property, and he goes, the property goes way down there, and then on that end there's the pigs over there, and then here's the cow, and there's like one baby calf, and then he's like, yeah, we keep the cows over here, but the property goes all the way back there. So I took it upon myself to look up his property, and in fact his property is 7.16 acres. Now let me tell you the problem I have with this. Let me give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he might have like another farm somewhere, but he was posting those videos saying that this is where all of the meat is coming from, like posting, here's all of the goats, the pigs are back there, the cows over there, the chickens are in that little hutch. Like, he was saying that this is where everything was, correct? Okay. So I look it up, it's 7.16 acres. Now, in December, when I picked up the meat, I actually had a conversation with him, and we talked for probably about an hour, because at that point he had already gotten late and he didn't drop off the meat until 3 a.m. He was supposed to be there at 8 o'clock at night, and he got there at 3 a.m. the next day. So we were there from like 7:30 until 3 a.m. waiting on him. 7 hours waiting for him to get there. So at that point I was like, screw it, and I had a conversation with him, and he said, and I was like, oh, the business probably has to be pretty lucrative, like you probably like it a lot. He says, yeah, I like it a lot, you know. I sell about between $500,000 and $600,000 worth of meat a month. And I said, what? That's a lot. And he said, yeah. So with all of this happening, I kept that in my mind, and so I did the math on it, and all of his meat is $2.67 a pound, or was at this point in time. He just recently raised his goat prices, and we'll get into that too. So all of his meat is $2.67 a pound. If you multiply, let's say, $600,000 on the high end, if you divide that by $2.67 a pound, you get about 230,000 pounds of meat. So he's processing and selling 230,000 pounds of meat a month. Sorry, sweetie, you can't do that on 7 acres. So with all of that being said, when I was speaking to Gertrude, I said, don't you find it funny that I'm on the phone. Don't you find it funny that when I first started ordering, there was sometimes not rabbit, or sometimes not goat, or sometimes not quail, because they weren't like old enough to be like, they couldn't slaughter them or whatever. But now he has like this unlimited like supply of meat and I can order whatever I want and nobody has had to like change their protein in like 5 or 6 months. You don't find that odd? And she was like, no, like I think he just upped his business. And I was like, okay. So after I speak to Gertrude and Tony, or well, I don't speak to Tony, but after Tony's like posting all these videos and pictures of his like huge farm, he posts that he's going to raise goat is the only protein that's going to be raised, and it's going to go from $2.67 a pound to $4 a pound. So it's going to raise 50%. His reasoning behind that was that feed for goats and other animals goes up 10 to 12% per year. And we're all like, okay, but why is it going up 50% if the feed cost is only going up 10 to 12%? So after he takes goat and he raises the price on it, it actually starts to get comical right about now. So I don't say anything about it, and you know, I'm like, I'm gonna let the devil lie, and I'm not gonna make a video, I'm not gonna say anything, I'm not gonna review it. I'm literally just going to ignore that it happened and move on with my life. And then he starts posting some more stuff, and one of the things he posted was a picture of a rabbit hanging that was skinned, and he said people just don't understand the processing, and he said that all of his meat looked the same because he bled it, but like, I've bled a deer before, it doesn't change the color of the meat, like maybe a little bit, I don't know. And so then it's been like probably 2 weeks since all of this, maybe 3 weeks since all of this happened. And today, on June 10th, he decides to shorten his menu. So he's taking away mutton and llama because he never posted pictures of not one mutton and not one llama. Like when he was proving that he had all this stuff on his property, he never posted that he had mutton or llama. He just kept posting pictures of rabbit, quail, and goat. That's the only stuff he actually posted pictures of. And then one calf that was like running around, but it was like super, super little, like just born calf. And then, to go even further, he decides to recall the last like month of food. He says in the last month it probably isn't what it's labeled as, and blah 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 blah. In Gertrude's long dissertation about how she has been feeding her dogs this for 3 or 4 years and whatever, and she mentions that Tony said that he will pay for anybody to have it tested. Because if we don't believe that it is what he says it is, that he will have it tested to prove that it is what he says it is. Well, obviously nobody wanted to step up because, you know, that's like, you're gonna get yelled at, and he's been rude to Elizabeth already. So we let it lie. So after letting this all lie, on June 10th, he decides that he's going to shorten the menu and recall all of like the last month, like the last 2 weeks and the future 2 weeks. So when he shortened the menu, he took off llama and mutton, and he never once showed that he actually had llama or mutton either, which is like where my problem started, was with him saying he had llama or mutton. In between me not saying anything, my mom actually called a close family friend that owns a pretty large business that bought over $1,000 worth of food from Tony, and told her like, hey, Tracy, let's call her Tracy. Hey Tracy, I need you to check the meat that you bought from Tony, because Laura and I are having problems with his meat. She checks his meat, she freaks out, he refunds her and admits on the phone to her that mistakes happen and this was a mistake and she must have gotten a bad batch. Okay, so he admitted to her that there was a mistake made and that was not what she says it is. And she said the same thing. She said, I dug through it, I couldn't find any organ meat in that, and I didn't see kidney, liver, long heart, nothing. I only saw, it literally looked like ground chicken quarters to me. It looked like ground poultry to me, Laura. And I was like, I know. So before making this video, I actually reached out to Tony, and I'm gonna go ahead and read what I said to him, and I will insert screenshots but while I'm reading it, but it's so long that it's gonna be a second. So I don't know how I'm gonna screenshot all of these, but I am. I said, hi Tony, I wanted to formally speak with you about this issue before escalating it further. I'm going to speak about multiple dogs here, some being my own and some being my mom's, and some being close friends, all eating your food. My 13-year-old dog is allergic to chicken, but she can have raw chicken but she will show signs of allergies if she eats it. In either October or November, I can pull vet records if needed, she broke out with a nasty yeast infection. I hadn't had that issue since I've had her, and I've had her for 9 years. When I took her to the vet, they point blank told me it was an allergy issue. I tried my hardest to get it to go away while on your food. Since switching them off of it, it's cleared up. You can go back and look at all of my invoices. I not once ordered chicken. The second strange thing that happened to me is that when I took all of my dogs off their supplemental things, their poop turned white and powdery. I have pictures of this too, if need be. It means that there's too much calcium in their diet. If your food was truly 80-10-10, then that wouldn't happen. Since switching them off of your food, their poop is normal. My 17-year-old cat even showed signs of too much calcium on your food and started to lose fur and decline, which, side note, if you have a 17-year-old cat that's declining, that's terrifying, okay? Come to find out from vet records, and I actually had $200 worth of blood work done on this cat, she was lacking in iron and needed increased amount of liver. I switched her off of your food and she's better. My 11-month-old German Shepherd puppy was losing hair and it was coarse and breaking. Since being off of your food, she has recovered. My 9-year-old Pointer and 2-year-old German Shepherd dog lost weight and had small signs of yeast. Neither of them tolerate chicken well either. They have since recovered and aren't eating your food anymore. My mom's epileptic dog was eating your food and he started breaking out, losing fur, and getting scabs. Since being off your food, he has recovered. My mom's Megasophagus dog lost so much weight his hip bones were protruding. He has since gained weight and is no longer eating your food. They all recovered, but what if they didn't? How come my friend's dog can eat rabbit from anywhere else and lamb from anywhere else, but not you? He breaks out on it. Two people had that same issue. Another person, his dog refused to eat the food and has since recovered being off of it. He lost weight too. Give me an explanation as to why my goat, llama, and mutton all looked like chicken quarters ground up. Tell me why I couldn't find any organ meat in the grinds. Please explain to me why when I cooked the meat it looked like dark meat chicken and was white. Why are all your proteins the same price? I've worked for a farm before. I know proteins all cost different amounts. Why did you refund some people money but claim I'm lying? Why did Gertrude block me from the group? Why aren't there pictures of mutton or llama? Why are you making the menu so much smaller so suddenly? Why was goat the only protein to raise? In price, I mean. Why did you raise it 50% instead of 10 to 12% since feed is being raised? Why were you never able to fulfill my whole rabbit order? With all that being said, I still have the meat from the last batch and so do a couple other people. We want to take you up on having it tested on your dime. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt here. Explain all these things to me. And I included all the pictures that I've already included in this video. And she said, I'm not sure why Gertrude blocked you, dear. I don't discuss things like that with her. As far as any of your other questions, you need to call me and discuss this with me over the phone. And that being said, my proteins are what they say they are. There could have been a mess up with packaging. Things like that do happen. We are not a commercial pet food supplier, only off the farm, dear. And folks feed farm-raised product on their own terms, and each co-op head person signs a form for the group stating that, dear, but I'd welcome you to call and talk with me about it. So let me explain really quickly why I didn't call him. I didn't call him because with anything being on the phone, I couldn't record it and then prove it in like a court of law, or I couldn't even post it here because he wouldn't know about it. And if I did tell him that I was recording the conversation, he wouldn't be honest about it. So I wanted to make sure that everything that I said was through like Messenger so that I could prove it here, because I don't want to look like some crazy girl who's just complaining about raw food because she has nothing else better to do. Because trust me, I do have better things to do, but I really hope that this video helps somebody, because honestly, I wish that I had seen this video from somebody else before I got involved with this company, because this is crazy. So I said, if the meat is what you says it is, then you wouldn't mind doing the testing you offered. You said you would pay for testing if anyone was unsure. Well, I'm unsure and I want either that or a refund for at least the last month I ordered. Reasonable. The test did stand during that time period and no one spoke up or wanted it in a reasonable time frame. So I said, So your offer expired. Interesting way of doing business. It's been like 2 weeks and none of us will use the meat and had to go out and buy another brand because of this whole fiasco. Well, I'm sorry, things don't last forever, dear. Yes, there's a time period on all things. I said, that wasn't noted. If the offer was going to expire, then you should have noted that, like a receipt of sorts. I'll have it tested on my dime, and when it comes back wrongly labeled, you'll have a whole other problem. Look forward to speaking to you about this at a later date. And he said, do what you gotta do, dear. You don't scare me at all. And there is no law states I have to give freaking notice. Now I'm through with you, and if it keeps on, you'll be hearing from my lawyer for slandering. Wow, it's almost like he's playing a character, and he can be rude, because when Elizabeth told me that he could be rude, I was like, what? He's like the nicest person in the world. But here we go. I said, public opinion is not slander. You're selling a product and you're subject to opinions of your customers, whether you like it or not. If your product is what you say it is, then you should have nothing to worry about. But do what you gotta do, dear. You don't scare me at all. And he said, correct, so shut the hell up about it and do it. So here I am doing it. You wanted it? This is my story. This is exactly what happened. I have all of the evidence. Again, I cannot prove that this is wrongly labeled, but like, I honestly feel like there's so much stuff here, there's so much evidence against him, and the fact that he won't get it tested kind of says something. It's also really interesting to me that he is like backpedaling on getting it tested because he knows that we can't get it tested. Like, you have to be a company. Like, I can't just send it off. Carla and Sarah and I have all talked about this, and we have all looked for places to actually get it tested, and nobody will get it tested unless it's like a large batch. Like, we can't do it for just like a 2 pound or a 4 pound chub. It has to be like thousands of pounds, and they charge so much money. So we were looking into it, and literally you cannot find, like, we would have to have somebody go test his facility, and that costs like thousands of dollars. So that's why we can't do that, and he knows that, and that's why he's getting away with that, because literally everybody is sitting here like backing him up for no reason. Like, he cannot prove that that's what's in his product. And just for the record, his product does state that it is 80-10-10, and I have a picture, I have like an actual form, like his order form, that says it's 80-10-10, and that the feline grind has more organ meat, which it doesn't. It doesn't, okay? And on top of all of that, he also claims that it's literally just like a whole ground animal, and like, it's not. It's just not. Oh god, this is such a shit show. So yep. I'm really sorry this video is so long and so depressing and so negative, but I honestly feel like it's gonna help somebody out there, because here's the thing. A year ago, if somebody had come to me and told me this, I would have thanked them so much, because for the past month I have been a like little ball of anxiety and stress and depression, because I felt like I failed my animals. I felt like I had absolutely just destroyed them. So with all of that being said, check out my other videos. They're a little happier. I mean, whatever, why not? And get to know me. But I mean, this video is not to try and get subscribers or views or anything like that. This video is literally to help somebody, because I wish I had been helped. So if you care to stick around, then fine. But if not, I will see you around in the raw feeding groups. Bye!